Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you for listening to Operation Agency Freedom, where we are bringing you top secret advice from the world's most badass digital agency owners and influencers. These amazing men and women are sharing their stories of how they have built 6, 7, and 8-figure digital agencies and how you can too. My name is Chris Martinez, CEO of Dude, where we help digital agencies by giving them the people and the processes so that they can scale profitably. Today, I am joined by my homie way up north in the northeast corner of Canada, Marcel Petitpas from Parakeeto. How's it going, man?
It's going great. Thanks for having me. I love the intro.
Thank you very much. I'm doing my best. I'm fighting off a cold. Like last week, I got sick on Thursday. Today's Monday. I got sick on Thursday night, and I was just basically floored all weekend. So I'm doing my best to hang in there. I got my tea, and then Liz just gave me some weird Mexican concoction for curing a cold. I don't know. It's probably got peyote in it, so this interview is probably going to go really weird at some point.
Sweet, let's Joe Rogan on here. Let's do it.
Absolutely. That makes you Elon Musk, maybe.
Yeah, sweet.
All right, cool. So we're going to get into the story and Parakeeto, which I'm a huge fan of, in a second. But of course, we always start every session or every episode with a little roundtable discussion type of thing. And today we're going to keep it light. We were doing some research and we saw that you are really good at ping pong. And we actually just bought a ping pong table for our staff here at the office that we've been playing like every single day. So let's hear about that, man, because it's not something that you don't get every day. You don't get to meet somebody every day who is a ping pong champion.
Well, so I haven't, let's be clear. This is when I was 14 years old. I won a medal at a provincial tournament, and, was actually training to be on the Canada Games team at that point in time in my life. Kind of a random thing. We got a ping pong table at the house and we all started playing a lot. And my dad found out there was a ping pong club. So we went in and there was this, coach that it was like full out. We had a ball machine that would shoot 100 shots to your forehand and you'd be there for 30 minutes, like breaking a sweat. And I played a lot of table tennis. That's the technical term, by the way. It's table tennis.
Sorry.
I don't play as much anymore, but I still do have a paddle, and I have my own paddle, which I bring to ping pong battles. And so everybody gets a little intimidated when you show up with your own paddle.
So, I mean, did you just have a natural ability towards, I'm going to say ping pong. I'm not going to say table tennis. Did you have a natural ability towards ping pong? And that's why you guys decided to get involved in the tournament?
I mean, at that age, like at 14, that's kind of like the age where I was playing every sport that my dad would let me play,
Right.
and eventually it got to the point where he had to be like, okay, you need to stop playing new sports. Like I was like, I want to play lacrosse too. Cause I was playing tennis, I was playing hockey, I was playing football, I was trying to play rugby, playing soccer, I was playing everything, table tennis at this point. I wanted to get into gymnastics, I wanted to get into lacrosse, and he was like, okay, you got to pump the brakes, kid. Like you're gonna take it easy. So it was just one of those things where he's like, hey, you want to go take ping pong lessons? I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I got into it, and at that age you learn things really quickly. I was a multi-sport athlete, so it's never been difficult to pick up things like that, and it was a lot of fun.
Wow. So, I love ping pong. I'm not anywhere near your level. There's no way that I could even, probably get past the first round in a tournament. But I did used to play ping pong a lot when I was a kid. And it's actually one of my fondest memories. My dad, for Christmas one year, he bought me a ping pong table. And I was probably I don't know, 9 years old. And the table was really small. So it was like the size of a lunch table, like a folding lunch table that you would buy at like Costco or something. And so we would play ping pong on that little table, and it was really, really fun because obviously you don't have a lot of room for error. So you would have to work on really, placing your shots really well. And then eventually we ended up getting a bigger table when I was in middle school or something. And man, we would play. And then when I was in college, there was a summer before my sophomore year, and every single day we would play ping pong. Well, I mean, we were drinking, of course, but we would drink beers and then play ping pong for hours and hours and hours on end. So I really, really love ping pong. I mean, what's your favorite ping pong memory?
I mean, for me, it's probably like I loved the ball machine when we went to training. So when you got like your own private, like 15 or 20-minute session with the ball machine, and you could just like practice shot after shot. I mean, doing like 200 backhands in a row and really working on, getting the right spin, putting it in the right spot. That was a lot of fun. I love that.
So wait, is this like a tennis ball machine, but like for ping pong balls?
Yeah, totally. You dump like a bucket of balls in the top of this hopper and it shoots it. And you can set the spin on this thing, really figure out like, so I was practicing returning different types of spin, returning it to different parts of the table. Because this is a big part of the game that at a high level people don't realize is like spin is a huge factor. You have to pay attention to what side of the racket, the red or the black side, your opponent's hitting the ball with and how they're hitting it. Because that spin, when it hits your racket, you have to counteract it. So there's a whole other sub game that's happening that people that watch maybe on television don't realize a lot of the time.
Wow. Okay, Liz, you're definitely going to have to Google the ping pong ball machine and bring up an image of that on the interview so we can show everybody. I want to buy one. How much do those things cost?
I have no idea. I mean, like probably like $1,000. I don't know, something like that.
Okay, if it's $1,000, I'm probably not going to buy it. But for $1,000, I can hire somebody in the park to just throw balls at me. So what are some of the life lessons that you learned from your experience in ping pong that you can somewhat carry over into today?
Yeah, I think it's like the same as just about anything else that you do. You get really good. There's like that 80% of proficiency that you get from just practicing something regularly. And then there's the difference between being proficient and becoming a master. And that is a much higher level of investment. And there's a point of diminishing returns, right? When you start investing your time in something where you have to put in an extra 1,000 hours to get 0.1% better than the next person once you reach that level of mastery. And that's where all the little details and things come into play. So ping pong was never something that I really wanted to reach a point of mastery in, and I gave it up. But I remember, once I got there, compared to everybody else, I was good at ping pong, but compared to my peers, that I play ping pong with, the amount of time and dedication it took to become a master of that sport, like anything else in life, was extremely high. And, you realize it, especially with a sport like that, where there's so much detail, there's so much skill involved, there's so much muscle, twitch memory that you have to program into yourself. And so that's probably the biggest takeaway is like, becoming a master at something, becoming truly excellent and world class, it requires a lot of additional time over, just getting to a level where you're proficient or you'd be considered a professional.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Did you ever get smoked really bad by somebody who ended up becoming like a pro at ping pong?
I mean, it's funny. We had this old coach and he was from India. I don't remember his name, but he was like this very like old and unassuming guy. And then every once in a while he would pick up the paddle and just like remind you that he was the master on the place.
That's the best.
It was awesome. Like,
I'm just picturing some little guy who's like Gandhi, almost like an Indian Yoda. And he just shows up and he's like,
it was exactly like that. It just like he would stand in the middle of the table and he barely move his feet and just like you'd never get anything past him. It was incredible.
Oh my God. I wish you would have gotten that on video. All right, cool, man. Well, let's transition into the reason why we're here. Let's hear about Parakeeto. So start off, tell us about your story and how you got started with Parakeeto.
Yeah. So how far back do I go? I mean, I started my career in business consulting and really in sales and marketing with Apple, and did that for about 4 years. And it was a great job, but I got to a point in my career where I had the opportunity to kind of take a big promotion and take a big step forward and realize that it really wasn't what I wanted to do. I mean, I was looking at my boss and thinking like, I don't really want to spend my days doing what he does. So I quit and said to myself, I'm going to build a business and sell it for millions of dollars before I turn 30 so I can take care of my family and spend more time with them and all this kind of stuff. And so then I went on the journey of discovering how that's way easier said than done. So I started an agency. That was one of the first things I did when I quit Apple. We were doing real estate VR services. And I learned two important lessons doing that. Number one, real estate agents are the cheapest people on earth. And number two, you really got to get your unit economics right if you want to scale an agency. You need to have enough margin to hire people to do the work and still have enough margin left over to pay your overhead. And I learned very early in that business that I was not going to be able to get a price from real estate agents that was conducive to scaling that business. And thankfully, I realized that early enough that I didn't invest a whole lot more time or energy into it and walked away. And then after that, I kind of sat back and said, look, if I'm going to do this, what do I want to do? And the answer was really tech. It was like, I want to swing for the fences because I'm young. I don't have anything to lose. I've got a safety net. Thankfully I have parents that are there for me if I need to move back into the house and sleep on the couch. Like, they're good for that until my dad said, until I turn 30. After that, I'm on my own. So I still got a few years left. But so then after that, I just started doing what you kind of have to do in tech, which is just trying to come up with lean ways to validate ideas. And I spent the next 2 years working part-time, doing consulting, and just trying to figure out what that idea was going to be. And the day that I landed on Parakeeto was when I actually got a call from my friend Jared, who runs an agency out in Boise called Royal J, has about 22 employees. And he just told me, like, I've got this problem, man. I cannot answer simple questions about my business without building a bunch of spreadsheets. I'm trying to figure out, are we making money on this project? Do I have enough capacity to take on new work? Are we utilizing our team? All these things that I'm asking myself pretty much every day and that are, impacting the decisions that I make. There's no way for me to get this in real time. So I've looked at all the, business intelligence dashboards. They don't really do the math. The only way to automate this is to switch to like this big all-in-one platform for my team. And it just doesn't work for us. The project management isn't good and this and that. So I can't believe no one's built this yet. I really think that there's a product here. And so long story short, we did the research. We figured out that there really is a big gap and that agencies want and need this, but no one's really tackling the challenge. And we set down the path to try and solve that problem. So we're about a year and a half into it now, just getting ready to roll out kind of an early product to our beta testers and early adopters. And I couldn't be more excited to start really, helping people solve this challenge and get them the information that traditionally only big agencies have really had access to on how to run a more profitable business.
Yeah, no, this is great, man. I mean, obviously, that I'm a huge fan of Parakeeto. And when we actually met, I had been experiencing a lot of the challenges that your software solves. Fortunately for me, my girlfriend is amazing at Excel. And so she whipped up this amazing, I don't even know how she does it, but it gives me all the data that we're looking for. But it's invaluable, like that's really how you need to be able to make your decisions. And I would say, of the agency owners that I meet, I would say anybody less than like, I don't know, 5 million, really don't have an idea as to how much they're making per client or a very solid way of tracking, what's really going on with the numbers. So I love that, man. So how, did you have any like formal education that kind of led you to be able to uncover this information easier than your typical agency owner?
Yeah, so I've been pretty fortunate in that when I decided I wanted to go into tech, I've always been a big fan of mentorship, and I was lucky to have a few people early on when I decided I want to become an entrepreneur, kind of reach out and offer me mentorship. And one of those guys really early on was named Dan Martel, and he's a software coach. He's probably the number one business coach for business to business software founders. And he happens to live, about a 10-minute drive from my house. And so in meeting him at events around town and getting to know him a little bit, he kind of took me under his wing and has given me access to a lot of the training and coaching that he's done. And through him, I really learned a lot of the fundamentals on how to start, validate, and scale a software company. And one of the first things that I learned from him was this concept of validation. Which is really being able to go out and do customer development interviews, try to pre-sell, really try to get confidence that the thing you want to build is valuable enough to have market value and to be able to scale. And so early on in this process, the first thing I did when I got off the phone with Jared and he explained the idea to me was I started sending cold emails to hundreds of agencies, getting on calls and just asking them about how they currently did things, what their biggest pain points were when it came to figuring out their metrics and profitability, and really trying to see if this is something that they're thinking about. And once we had, enough data to figure out like what the gaps were, and we kind of put together an initial offer, we did an experiment where we pre-sold. And so we had some simple mock-ups, and we said, hey, look, this is what we plan to build. It's going to be ready in a few months. You could wait and pay a few $1,000s for it then, or you can send us $500 right now and you'll be on the early access list and you'll get all these extra bonuses. And we convinced a few people to send us the money. Of course, we ended up giving it right back to them because there was no way we are going to deliver that product that quickly. But it told us that there was actually a willingness to pay. The pain point was strong enough that they were willing to essentially send money to people they didn't know to get it solved. And that's when we knew, okay, it's worth investing now the hundreds of thousands of dollars it's going to take to build this product. And we started down that path thereafter.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, we kind of did the same thing with Dude. When I came up with the concept, I've told the story a few times. I was sitting at my friend's beach house, and then, the idea. Well, first I listened to a podcast of Russ Perry, who started Design Pickle, and then I was like, I bet you we can do this with web development using our team in Tijuana, Mexico. And then the name, Dude, came to me while I was sitting at my friend's beach house, and we just started running Facebook ads. And like with no expectation, I was like, I think this is a great idea. Let's see what happens. So we started running Facebook ads, and that's how we got our first few clients. And that was how I proved, the concept to myself. So I think that that's really, really important. So what were some of those hot button things that you put out there that, the agency owners were responding to? Like, was there a particular messaging or something that you were saying?
Yeah, I mean, like, essentially the way I reached out to them to get them on a call was like, hey, we're building this thing. And it was really just like asking for advice. And so a lot of people didn't respond, but a few people were really kind and they did respond. And so I probably sent, 3,000 or so emails, maybe more, and got on 60 or 70 calls. So like the conversion rate wasn't great, but every 100 or so people that I emailed, you have one person to respond and be like, oh, cool. Like, I'll help you out. Just entrepreneur to entrepreneur. That was kind of the pitch. But once we got on the call, the narrative that I heard over and over and over again was, a couple of things. The first was like, yeah, we don't really look at this stuff. Or the people that were looking at it, they were like, oh yeah, like, we build a spreadsheet, or we get 8 people in a boardroom and we just kind of like talk about it and write it down on a whiteboard. I'm like, okay, and how much do those people charge an hour? Okay, so that's costing you like $1,000 to have that meeting every week. Okay. Yes. And started really figuring out like that the ways people were tracking these things, if they were doing it at all, was completely broken. And then when we started digging into the solutions that were available, we kind of uncovered that there's basically 2 options for you, and both of them kind of suck. You get to a certain point in your company, and this, where you can't ignore these numbers anymore because they start causing cash flow problems. And so you start saying, okay, how are we going to fix this? And of course you get the spreadsheet, and that's going to work for you until you hit another milestone in your business, and then the administrative burden becomes too large again. And then you're looking at, how do we automate this? And the answer is basically keep building spreadsheets and keep throwing man hours at it, which becomes expensive. Build a custom solution, which I've seen very few people do it successfully. You sink a couple $100,000 into building something on top of a CRM or a project management tool. Or number 3 is you move the whole team off of the stack of tools you probably have now, which is like a time tracking tool, whatever that might be, an accounting tool, a project management tool, or 2 or 3 or 4, depending on how your team works. Your resource planning tools, all the spreadsheets you're using, and you try to move all of that into an all-in-one. And there's a bunch of them out there, like the Maven Links, the Workfronts, the Workamajigs. They're big, impressive pieces of software, but the sentiment I get from most people is, it just doesn't work for me. I don't like the project management. I can't get my team to do it. It doesn't have all the features that I want, or it's kind of a jack of all trades and a master of none. I feel like it's a compromise, and the risk and the cost of making that switch is huge. And so they're kind of stuck. Like, is there no other option? And we saw an opportunity to come in and be that solution. It's like an escape ladder that says, look, you don't have to do any of those big, expensive, scary things. You can just plug the stuff that you're using into our platform and get these metrics that you need in real time without having to build a bunch of spreadsheets, and go about growing your business and making it more profitable.
Now, I've mentioned this to you before. What you're talking about is the least sexy side of running an agency. Numbers. Because agency owners, for the most part, they're marketers, or they're like really creative people. And that's what they really love to do. And so, like they don't like to think about numbers and operations. And we're kind of in the same boat too, because dude, we're operations. Like we support the operations side of the business, which I tell everybody, like after a while, you realize the operations is where you really make or lose all your money.
Mhm.
So have you ever found challenges starting the conversation with like the numbers and the non-sexy stuff?
Yeah, totally. I can't tell you how many, especially in that initial like send out, how many emails I would get, or even people that would get on a call and they would be like, "Oh, well, we don't bill for time, so I don't look at any of this stuff." Or, we're just about doing the most creative, like amazing work. We don't really care how long it takes. Or so what if, our utilization, our capacity isn't right, or if we're going over budget on projects. And it's incredible how many agency owners don't understand their business model, like just the fundamental economic realities of a service business model. And it doesn't matter if you're building houses or you're building websites or you're doing plumbing, the business model is the same. And there are just like truths about it, which is like you have a human, that human needs to spend time to deliver that thing to the client that they're paying you for. And so you're selling time, whether you are structuring your contracts that way or not, whether you bill by the hour or you bill on value or you bill flat monthly retainers or you do a traditional retainer, like doesn't matter, you're selling time. And so you have to account for those economic realities. And it was mind blowing how many people just kind of rejected that. But I think it's because a lot of them came from a big agency, quit, started their own thing, and it was kind of like a fight the power, like screw the man kind of attitude where they wanted to be scrappy. And a lot of them are getting away with it because they're small, they have 10, maybe 15 employees, so they can get away with not really paying close attention to it. But the tune always changed when they got to 20, 30, 40, because you can't ignore it anymore. That's the point when you're like, oh crap, we just like almost missed payroll, or oh
Mm-hmm.
crap, like we had our busiest quarter ever and we have no cash in the business. Why is this happening? And inevitably, when you look into that, you realize it's because we're not managing our business properly and we're not paying attention to the unit economics that, to your point, determine how much money we make.
Yeah, I mean, that's super, super true. And I experienced that myself. I've told you this before earlier in the year. We had a massive growth year last year. And then at the end of like earlier this year, I'm like, well, why don't we have as much cash in the bank as we should, or as I feel like we should? And that's when we really started looking at the numbers, and it turned around very, very quickly in a positive way. So let me ask you some other questions. Like, what are some of the big challenges that you're experiencing right now growing Parakeeto? Because I'm sure growing a software company, it's not easy.
Yeah, I mean, our biggest challenge has certainly been around the product. And, we asked ourselves for a long time, why has nobody tried to do this yet? And then I think we found out it's because it's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's a challenging technical problem to solve. And there isn't really a whole lot of standardization in the industry around language, around how things are formatted, around kind of the core metrics. So we're really trying to do our best to create that documentation and become the leader and set the standards for, if you run a service business, these are the kinds of metrics that you should be looking at. This is what you should call them, because there's 7 different names for this and 7 different names for that. And then just like on a resourcing perspective, we started this as, kind of a side project inside of Royal J, and that was great for getting us off the ground and getting some initial traction on the product. Now, unluckily for me and luckily for Jared, Royal J has done extremely well the last year. But generally what that means is there's paying clients that need attention, and there's the side project that's not paying and that doesn't get as much attention. And so because of that, we got from time to time less attention on the product than others, and it didn't move quite as quickly as we wanted to. But we've recently been trying to build our own team outside of Royal J and just kind of changing the arrangement so that we can get more consistent resources. And that's been going extremely well. And we should have a press release before long to announce a couple new members of our team, which I'm really, really excited about. But I would say it's certainly been a product challenge, and a lot of it has to do with resourcing, but it's also figuring out the nuance. And, that's something that is just always going to be a challenge when you're building a software product, especially when it's integrated into a workflow like this, is
Mm-hmm.
making sure that you get the details right. Because the concept is good. Everybody agrees with the concept, but when you start touching this kind of process inside of an agency, you got to make sure that you understand the details. And that takes a lot of testing, takes a lot of putting screenshots in front of people and figuring out what they do and don't like. It just takes a lot of, human contact to figure out the nuance.
Awesome. So I do want to make sure that everybody walks away from this episode learning something. So can you just give me one big thing or one big metric that you feel like all agency owners can implement today that will make a big, big difference in their agency?
Well, I always like to talk about three. I mean, to me, the business model of a service business, there are three things that essentially determine how your business runs. There's your capacity, which is how much work could you possibly do if everything was going as planned, which means how many people do you need to have available and how much time do they need to invest to get you there. Yep. There's your utilization, which is how much of that time are you actually utilizing for billable work that you're getting paid for. And then there's your average billable rate. On average, every time one of your team members sits down and does work for a client, how much revenue does that generate for you? If you can pay attention and track those three numbers and then start to track them at the client level, at the project level, at maybe even the task or service level, then you should gain a whole new level of insight in your business, and you'll be able to know exactly who your best clients are, who your worst clients are, what your best services are, what your worst services are, who your best employees are, and who's not performing, and start to get the insight that you need to figure out, like, hey, we go over budget on websites by 20% every single time. Maybe we should change the way we're pricing out our websites and scoping that work, right? Yeah. Every time that Tommy and Jimmy work together, they go over budget. Maybe we should consider having a conversation with them or looking into why that is, right? These kinds of things that you don't really know, and generally you only respond to the fire. Well, these metrics will give you the opportunity to see the smoke before the fire happens and get a chance to go in and resolve those things, or at least implement procedures, processes to prevent them from happening again. So those are the three metrics: capacity, utilization, average billable rate. Try to get a handle on those things. And if you want some resources on how to do that, head to our website. We've got some blog posts on that. Send me an email or, just reach out and I'm happy to point you in the right direction on how to get the basics started in your agency.
Yeah, utilization is one thing that I definitely want to chat about, like just really quickly, because I think that a lot of people have a misunderstanding of what a optimal utilization rate should be, because you're like, oh, I hire these people, this person, I pay them 40 hours for 40 hours a week, and they should be billing 40 hours every week. And while yes, that is ideal, I don't necessarily know if that's always realistic, because you do have staff meetings that come up and then they have to do, expense reports every week. So what's like a utilization that you recommend that people shoot for?
Yeah. So here's the thing. I think a lot of times this is a thing that happens in the agency world all the time, and it makes me very angry is agency employees tend to be overworked, right? They're working 40, 50, 60-hour weeks because they're expected to bill, 40 hours. And then on top of that, they've got to do all the other stuff. They've got to have lunch. They've got to go to team meetings. They've got to do this thing, that thing. They've probably got a good 6 to 8 hours of administrative work that they're not, billing out for within the agency. Mm-hmm. And generally, the reason they're working that much is because their upper level management is not scoping projects properly. They're not planning resources properly. They're not giving them the tools to be efficient at their jobs. And so the management is making decisions about sales and scoping, and basically who's subsidizing that? It's the employees.
Yep.
And so generally what we like to see in agency is anywhere from 30 to 36 billable hours a week. It's certainly there's more than that, but you should be able to make a 3x to 4x multiple on an employee's salary in a year if you are pricing things properly. And you should be able to do it with that level of billability from a week-to-week basis. And on an annual basis, 65, maybe 70%, that's including time off, vacation, all that kind of stuff. 65 to 70% utilization on an annual basis, you should have no problem achieving that level of multiple on their salary, which should give you the margin that you need to be a highly profitable service business. And if you're not doing that, then you need to take a hard look at your processes, how you're scoping things, how you're pricing things, and make sure that you're not essentially letting your employees subsidize your lack of operational excellence as a business owner. And that may sound a little harsh, but I see so many agency employees, some of them close personal friends of mine, getting burnt out because they're essentially being taken advantage of. And it just really grinds my gears.
Oh, man. I love what you just said. It was a giant smack in the face to all you agency owners. Because if you were saying what he just said, if you can't make money, then you really have to take a hard look in the mirror and figure out or realize, hey, this is because of you. This is because of the way that you're operating your business. Your prices are too low and you're not efficient, and you're going to drive all of your staff away. And if you start to see a high employee turnover, then absolutely that is a sign that you need to change things right away, because you are fucking up. Pardon my French.
Seriously.
I just get excited. I just get excited about this like you do too. So,
and I mean, I think this is a good opportunity to plug services like Dude too, because a lot of times this is the result of agency owners, again, not having the data to figure out, what kind of decisions they should make. And they make a hire that's a little bit optimistic. They try to add a new service to their business. Sales don't keep up. Now that person is, not being properly utilized, and they have to be let go, or they end up doing a bunch of work that they're not experts in, and they're in over their head and it's not a good fit. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to also use services like Dude to validate if, really you should be selling websites at your agency. And if you can sell those consistently, and if you can figure out kind of what the scope of work and pricing looks like, and then do the math to figure out if it makes sense to hire somebody in your geographical area and that you can utilize them at a reasonable rate and make that profit. Like, there are numbers you can use to make these decisions way more efficiently. And there are services you can use to mitigate the risk and mitigate the harm that you might do to somebody if you hire them and then have to let them go thereafter because, you didn't really have the sales to back it up, or you could make the numbers work.
Yeah. And we actually run these reports that you're talking about every month. And I'm surprised, like sometimes I'll share the numbers with our agency clients, and they're just like blown away. They're like, I had absolutely no idea that I was using, sending over that many requests and it was taking that much time. And I was like, well, yeah, now we're telling you. Now you have to buy something else from us. So, all right. On that note, we've got to wrap up. We're just about out of time. So I want to thank you so much for joining us today, Marcel. What's the best way for people to get in contact?
Yeah, great question. So there's a couple places you can check us out. We also have a podcast called the Agency Profit Podcast, notoriously similar naming. So you can check that out at parakeeto.com on our blog. We post all of our episodes there. I've got some free stuff for you guys. If you're looking to get some more information on how to track those metrics I talked about, you can head to get.parakeeto.com/profit. There's a toolkit there with all kinds of great resources that you can use. And my email is kind of splattered all over the internet, but I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, and you can easily find my email. I'm sure it's on Hunter and all those things. So if you want to reach out to me, please do. And if you download the toolkit, you'll get an email from my email address. So you can just reply to that if you have any questions. I'm happy to help you out however I can. Yeah. So that's how you get in contact with me.
And then who would be the perfect person to reach out to you today?
If you're between, let's say 10 and 30 employees, but you're starting to feel the pain of why isn't our cash flow that good? Why aren't we growing that fast? If you're really starting to feel the pain of not having these numbers figured out in your agency, then reach out. I'm more than happy to help you figure out how to get these things implemented, and for free. You don't have to use our software, because again, I'm doing this not just for you as a business owner, but for your team, for your families, and for your clients, to make sure that you're running a sustainable business and everyone can benefit from that. That's really my mission behind this whole thing. So yeah, if you're starting to feel that pain and you're trying to figure out how to get this stuff implemented, reach out and I'm happy to help.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. To all of our listeners, thank you guys for tuning in today, and make sure you return next Thursday and every Thursday for the next episode of Operation Agency Freedom. Bye-bye.